Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast live from Shop Talk Lux. We're here in the sun of Abu Dhabi. Pretty blessed. By the way, if you're listening to this episode, you can also watch us on YouTube. And if you're already watching us, here we are. So I wanted to thank Shop Talk Lux for putting up such an amazing event. I hadn't been to an event that is so outside. I thought Cannes was very outside, but this is even more. The weather is phenomenal, like mid-low 20s. Life's good.
There's sky.
Yeah, and blue skies. I think that there's a guarantee here in the Gulf that it won't rain. And also, that's why you can do that. But yeah, I'm accompanied by Stacia Carr, who's the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Vestiaire Collective. She also said that she's a CPTO at Vestiaire Collective. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. Great to be here with you.
It's a pleasure. We've had a good conversation prior. I think it's going to be a good one. Maybe it could be interesting before we start. I'm familiar with Vestiaire Collective. I have been for a long time. But in case somebody doesn't know them, just to put them into situation, what is Vestiaire Collective?
Who are we? So Vestiaire Collective is the secondhand luxury fashion platform, the trusted luxury secondhand platform, based out of Paris originally, although now serving 70 markets worldwide. We've been around for 16 years, and our focus is really to create a trusted platform for buyers and sellers to do exactly that, buy and sell secondhand luxury goods.
So basically, you're like a secondhand marketplace for like luxury brands.
Correct. Not for the brands themselves, but for consumers who have secondhand luxury goods that either they are ready to share with somebody else or somebody that's looking. Yeah.
First thing that comes to mind, actually, never thought of this. How do you separate? What's the criteria for defining what can go on the platform and what cannot?
It's a good question. So we service today premium designer and luxury. We did go through a period of time where we opened up the platform to more goods, but at some point we decided to ban fast fashion from the platform to really take a stand, to emphasize the environmental impact aspect of what we do. It is a mission-driven company, and so we really want to encourage people to consume, whether it's firsthand or secondhand, higher quality products, because they last longer, their resale value retains, and it makes them more attractive to then continue in a re-commerce setting.
Yeah, very cool. And you've been in the company for?
I've been in the company for about 1.5 years now. So I'm a new joiner in the C-level group.
So what's your story? What's your background?
It's a long journey, but I've focused in consumer tech for a very long time, dating all the way back to the beginning of the commercial internet. And I started in online music and media distribution.
Napster?
Exactly. So
you worked at Napster?
I did not, but I was working on other distribution platforms that rivaled Napster. But I was in San Francisco, which is basically where I'm from, at that time, and it was such an exciting, naive time.
You bet. Like when internet was seen as a very positive force.
Very positive.
Very like, I don't know, like anti-establishment.
Exactly. And disruption was part of the narrative, but it was more about disruption to create new, more effective mechanisms for achieving, in this case, music distribution. The financial part of it came a little bit later when the dot-com bubble burst and we all realized viable business models are actually really important.
The music industry was never the same.
No, we fundamentally disrupted it, yeah.
Actually, if you worked in music and you're Californian, what type of music are you into?
Well, I grew up actually playing jazz music. But I mean, all different kinds of music around the world. It's a big passion of mine, is music.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm really into like classic rock and stuff like that.
Nice.
But to go out, I prefer electronic, ironically.
I mean, electronic dance music is where it's at for social, of course. And I live in Berlin, so
exactly.
The capital, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually planning to go to Berlin at some point.
We'll exchange notes.
Okay, perfect. I'm writing that down. That won't be published on the podcast. I'm sorry.
Don't do that to yourself.
Well, it's a pretty informal but so what did you do later? So
I started out,
bubble.
and then I went down a slightly different path I worked in private aviation, so digitizing, how we put private jets in the air,
Wow.
which went from this like pure media play. So even when I was working in online music distribution, we were still working with digital technology, to technology where, we're talking about putting large objects in space. And so how you think about working with technology has to be radically different, because the risk that you're trying to deal with is much, much higher if there's some kind of failure. So that was very humbling. So I actually worked there for a company called Tag Aviation with a group of people that I'd worked at Netscape. Netscape.
Wow.
And we were quite naive, and I think a little bit, there was some hubris in there, and the sort of punishing nature of physical reality when it comes to technology became very, very instructive. So I went from that and then back into media distribution. So I worked in online video production and distribution, where I had products that were backed by subscription models, pay-per-minute models.
You would typically be the person responsible for
Product and technology, product and engineering, yeah. Yep. So, I've had quite an emphasis on consumer, but then I've done a few other things. And I always mention the experience in aviation because fast forward, I land in Berlin and I start working for Europe's largest fashion e-commerce player, Zalando, and I start working on one of the hardest problems in fashion e-com, which is size and fit, which is all about physical reality, bodies meeting clothing, and trying to help people in a digital context assess whether something's going to fit. And that was a great challenge. It still remains an unsolved challenge. We chip away at it, but...
It's an interesting one, because I actually have a friend that was, he has like a solution for shoe fitting, but he was finding it hard to find brands to commit to that.
Yes, it's quite, when you go, and we went quite deep into the supply chain, you realize how much data is just falling through the cracks of this sort of, I would say, fairly, let's call it established fashion product design and manufacturing processes. They've not evolved in the same way that other industries have, where data is captured and easily managed. And then even within one line of shoe, for example, you will have deviations in production that affect size based on where the manufacturing happens. So the variability is extremely high. And then there's also brands not wanting to give away their data for replication. So it's a complicated beast.
So it sounds easy, but it has all these back end.
Massive, huge, complex, which if you like solving complex problems, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then you went from Zalando to Carvey.
Correct. And Vestiaire has been a real joy because it takes fashion and puts it in the context of re-commerce, which is even in a way more complex because you don't have all the product data you have in a first-hand context. You're reliant on sellers. And then you have this authentication piece, which is sort of the ultimate, is the physical good legitimate?
Yeah.
And solving that with technology and human-powered curation and authentication, I think, is very exciting.
And it's interesting how Vestiaire Collective has really positioned it as the market,
the trusted marketplace,
at least in Europe.
Yes. We are
with a French name on top of it, so it's interesting.
Not always easy for people to say.
Yeah.
We actually did a whole campaign about how to teach people how to say Vestiaire, breaking it down into articles of clothing. But anyway.
Best.
Yes, T.
Oh, amazing. And what to ask you, because that's something that I don't know, kind of realized, how important it is in a career to, in certain times, take certain risks.
Mm-hmm.
What is, a risk that you've taken in your career?
Oh, it's a great question. Coming to Europe was a huge risk. So
what were the circumstances?
I had been working in San Francisco for 15, 16 years, and I had just sold a small mobile app consulting company. And I'd always wanted to live in Europe, and I didn't really know how I was going to get there. And somebody had introduced me to a Spanish entrepreneur who wanted some advice. And Spain had just passed this entrepreneurship visa. And I was like, maybe this can work. Little did I know what I was signing up for in terms of Spanish bureaucracy. That's a whole other podcast. It was crazy. so crazy. I ended up on the New York Times Sunday Business front page because it was such an interesting story. But as I mentioned to you as we were chatting earlier, like it was really taking myself out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, why would you leave San Francisco? It's where you were from. You had a career there.
Lots of capital.
Your skills are like suited to that market as well.
I really wanted to see what it was like to do what we do, create products that solve customer problems somewhere else. And like I said, just personally had always been interested in Europe. And so I sort of dropped myself in very cold water and had to swim. And that was...
I've it a few times and then...
I mean, expat life is hard in general, but from a career perspective, it raised a lot of questions like it's very easy for Americans to say, it feels 5 to 10 years behind, like how does this all work? But then when I realized the economic importance of entrepreneurship in Europe, I really felt like I had something to offer, where in the US, I'm like so many people have similar experience, whereas here in Europe, I had something unique that could be helpful. And so, I didn't know that going into it. So sometimes you have to just be open to see what you discover.
Yeah, very good story. I mean, I think we could do a podcast on that zone, like this thing of like taking risks, being then like, I don't know, resilient is the word.
That's the word.
Is it? Yeah, there you go. I mean, just like kind of being pig-headed of like, okay, I made this move, I'm gonna make it work out. Like sometimes...
There were so many times when I probably should have gone home, but because I put all this effort into getting there, I was like, no, I really want to see this through.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to take these, the most interesting thing of these things is that sometimes you have to take these risks on your own.
Yes.
And a lot of levels, because it's also not only the fact that you're moving on your own, it's your career, but also that your friends and your family always going to want the best for you, but then that means safety in certain occasions, right?
My family was very supportive, but what I ran into was people were like, why would you ever leave San Francisco? And I just said, it's easy for me. It's an easy place for me to be. So I mean, what you said, you take it on your own personal challenge. You're the one that knows what is really truly a challenge and what is staying in your comfort zone.
Yeah. So why did you take the offer from Vestiaire Collective?
I love the brand, and I learned a lot about what I believe needs to change in fashion through my time at Zalando. And Zalando had made and still does make a lot of progress towards commitments to really evolve the fashion industry. But one of my big beliefs is that the industry will change when consumer behavior changes.
So.
And I really believe secondhand luxury can be a massive driver for e-commerce adoption, because it's not only you're opening up luxury goods to an audience that wouldn't normally be able to afford it, and it's very attractive. So I thought, let me put my time and money behind this, money being my time essentially, and join something where I think there's a real chance to influence in a different way.
Yeah. And what does your role actually mean?
Chief Product and Technology Officer.
CPTO,
yeah. So I lead the product engineering and data teams at Vestiaire, as well as security and internal IT. So we look at all facets of the consumer-facing app. We also look at all facets of the systems that drive our operations. So that doesn't just include sort of logistics, but also curation, authentication, account verification, because coming back to the nature of the trusted platform, there's quite a lot of investment in really validating the quality of buyers and sellers on the platform, the inventory that we list, and then...
Of course, the people that are selling things on... This is not an Amazon.
No.
Companies selling to companies or selling to people. It's people selling to people.
Exactly.
So it's has all that capillarity. Also getting people to mail things, get there on time.
And making sure that people...
It's something, about it. Like if we thought about this business model like 20 years ago, it would have been a thought, and people would be like, oh yeah, that's never gonna work.
Exactly.
How is somebody gonna go to the post office and send a piece that works,
Exactly.
And if you put it in perspective, it's It's fascinating. It kind of restores a bit of faith in humanity.
Exactly, that a human being will, agree to do something
Yeah.
that involves putting their shoes or their bag.
Yeah, you actually do it.
Exactly. It reminds me of, I was an early adopter of Airbnb. Very similar. I had a space, had a big house in San Francisco, and I had space and I rented it. And
Also, it was the real Airbnb. Like,
correct. Yeah. And that, same. There's a trust that gets built and a platform that reinforces that trust. And so I'm responsible for the teams that build the software and operate the software that drives all of that. So from operations to the customer experience, and then, all of the infrastructure that powers the warehouses that we operate to ship the products when they come through for authentication.
what was like the mandate they gave you?
So it was, let's really evolve our product and tech organization. It's a company that has been very focused on getting product market fit. But if you look at some of the technology infrastructure, it's a bit old. And they did a lot of rapid innovation in the beginning without thinking about scaling. Very typical problems. It's not unique. So, and then, I happened to join just as the AI sort of hype cycle was actually taking root and making substantial change. So it was, how do we leverage AI to actually evolve product and tech organization and the whole business?
So, well, how are you living?
What does that mean? What are you doing, Stacia?
What can you doing that you can actually talk about?
So the sort of exciting stuff for us, although, depending on who the listener is, it may or may not be so exciting, is we've got a ton of tech debt that needs to be refactored in order to make our platform more scalable, more performant, and ultimately create more opportunity for us to create innovation for customers. And we're leveraging AI now to help speed up that refactoring work, which
is arguably the non-sexy part of AI. With like, there's so much efficiency.
It's huge, and it. What's cool is there was a lot of skepticism in the beginning, and still, like, you can't just do greenfield. It's very easy to develop new apps from scratch using AI, but actually using it to refactor existing code requires a deeper level of sophistication. And we got there. And so we've made good progress. We've also increased our capacity when it comes to data product analytics. So what does that mean? We have data analysts that are looking at how customers are using our product on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And those folks were doing a lot of repetitive work. We used AI to basically, increase their capacity by 30% just by throwing all of that at an AI to say, okay, if you want to ask the same repetitive question about customer performance last week, you can ask the agent, and you don't go to my data product analyst.
Is there any like AI that the client would see?
That flashes AI at them? No, not today. I mean, I think what people will feel, if you go through the listing process, we curate listings, and so we use AI to review the images, the information that you list.
Yeah.
That's very much AI enabled.
It's customer facing ultimately.
Exactly.
And it's, yeah, I know what you mean. It improves the experience, but no, you wouldn't be thinking, oh, this is AI. It's just like,
No,
seamless.
seamless. Yeah. We've enabled image search so that's sort of very popular, and this is important for fashion. You can take pictures or screen grabs and use them as the input to find items on the platform if you're in the buying mode. And this is critical for us because a secondhand platform, you don't have inventory depth, but rather width. And so it's a treasure hunt. And if you can use images to speed up your discovery process, it becomes a lot more interesting faster.
And how important is it for you guys to like have like that the customer has like a very like premium feeling experience? Like, where do you want to? What's your vision of, or what's your vision or the company's vision of how you want the position?
It's a good question. I mean, our design is intentionally very minimalistic because we want to look like a luxury platform. So you see it today in our design choices. I think in the future, we still want to maintain that sort of luxury, minimal, very sort of elegant look. But we're talking now about conversational search. So I don't I don't think a dedicated chatbot is how customers are going to interact with Vestiaire, but I think our search bar will evolve so that you can have conversations in the search bar the same way that you do today with ChatGPT or whoever your favorite. I'm a Claude girl myself. And continually make it seamless to discover. Part of what we're exploring is what are different types of discovery journeys customers want to have, because we know that the treasure hunt in secondhand is like people enjoy that. But then there's a question around there's probably other modes customers are in.
Because you probably don't want them necessarily to be able to like, oh, I want like to give them exactly what they're asking for, because sometimes that's the thing of the treasure hunt. You find unexpected things, no? So
I think
finding that balance.
I think exactly it. So how do we?
Not like going to the supermarket.
No, it's a bit different.
It's like it's a discretionary spend.
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes people are
Sometimes it's a replacement of.
exactly. So it's about using AI, I think, to determine who is your like what browsing mode is your customer in, and then how do you present them with the right experience to meet that need.
Yeah, what I was gonna ask you, like, how do people behave on or like when they interact with you guys on the app or on the website? I mean, I don't know if there's anything coming also from Zalando that kind of surprised you, or that's counterintuitive, I don't know.
Good questions. In the Vestiaire context, we see people spend a lot of time browsing, a lot of time scrolling, and that really supports the belief that luxury goods are as much eye candy in a digital context as they are products for consideration. And in Zalando, you see today, they have a similar play. It's a very different inventory, but the physical product becomes the content. And so Zalando is going down a path to really leverage that for more of entertainment. Whereas in my view, with luxury goods, you don't need to entertain. The products are compelling enough.
You have to focus on the product itself.
Because there's so much detail. I mean, just looking at, beautiful handbags, shoes, jewelry. So I think understanding how to leverage more of that. But yeah, we're always talking about our customers love to scroll. That's not a bad thing. Obviously, if you're in a hurry and you want to find something, I want to make it efficient, but I also don't want to take that away from a customer.
Yeah. How long have you been with the business now?
About a year and a half.
About a year.
Yeah.
What's your vision for the next? And I wrote down 5 years, but maybe that's a bit ambitious. Maybe how do you think, and what cycles do you think? Do you think like?
I think we're currently having a conversation right now. I think in 3 to 5 year cycles. I think that's appropriate. Although with AI, you have to be willing to disrupt your own thinking, right?
All the things will change.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's good though to have like a certain vision and all stuff.
Yeah, agreed. So
not like you could just be changing directly.
Exactly. And even though AI is changing the components of it, which is you need high quality data, that doesn't go away. So I think first and foremost, we need to meet customers where they are, and we know that there will be a shift to agentic commerce. That's already happening. So the question is, how do we make that a great experience? And how do we evolve the Vestiaire app to reflect that enough that it feels seamless when you come over? I'm really keen to spend more time looking at what we can do with product data to help customers get closer to the physical good, but that's always tricky because there are, you miss things in the translation between digital and physical.
And you never know how much also the customer will know how much technical expertise they'll need.
Exactly. So that's a tricky one, but we will continue to pursue, like, do we create, visualizations of products on avatars in 3D fitting rooms. I worked on that a lot at Zalando. What's right in a luxury context may not be right in a mass market context, so we need to learn that. And then I think one of our big areas for exploration and innovation is around pricing. Pricing in a secondhand context is super tricky. So how do you value a good in a secondhand market, in a secondary market? So what kind of data can we acquire that will help us continually make great price recommendations for sellers that buyers will also find agreeable? I think that'll be an area that we continually work on.
And it's a very cool thing about the luxury courses. While, as you said, you can get an item at a price point that's much lower than you would buy it
Initially, yeah.
They also have the contrary, that
They retain value.
objects that like retain or even gain value.
Yes. The Hermes handbag is usually the one that
Yes.
Yes, exactly. No, so all of that is very interesting. And then of course, the crown jewel of Vestiaire is really our authentication process. And we use we have a human and machine-based authentication process. We will continue to evolve that so that customers can have a trusted platform. I think what that looks and feels like remains to be seen. Obviously, the data that we leverage to authenticate with is quite an asset, and we want to, as that's our bread and butter, we want to really keep that for ourselves, because so that we can control it. But how we continually earn the trust of customers, I think we will evolve.
Yeah, it's the whole marketing conversation of how to make it culturally relevant, how to make your customers your fans and promote.
Yes, and a younger audience. So I mean that's and where the hypothesis is that the youngest audiences will buy high and low. So how do we bridge that gap? I think that could be very exciting.
Totally. I have one question that I asked all the guests on the podcast, which is, and you went back to the beginning of your career with the few things that you've learned.
Yep.
Cherry pick up quite a few. What would be the one piece of advice you give yourself?
So I love that I got to grow up in the .com boom. I think that was amazing, but I wish I had done, so I did 9 years at Zalando, which was like going to school and doing a master's and a PhD. I learned so much. I wish I had done that earlier in my career, like done a stint at a Microsoft or an Apple to really get some
like this practice type of.
Yes, because scale is very punishing and you learn so much very fast. I don't regret the choices that I made, but I recognize in hindsight the value of that education is so tremendous. And I think I could have leveraged it if I had done it a little bit earlier. So I always tell people, working for startups is very exciting, but you won't get the same depth of education because you also won't be surrounded by the same number of people that you can learn from.
Absolutely. I have to say that for you coming from, because normally it's like you start in a good school like Zalando or in CPG, Procter & Gamble,
right.
Microsoft, or these. Normally you do that and then you do smaller companies.
Exactly.
It's the other way around. And
exactly.
It seems like it worked out.
It did. And I mean, like I said, I have no regrets, but in hindsight, I'm like, people do this first and then they have, I worked at Zalando with some P&G people and they had tremendous education and they just fly.
All hires a lot of like Boston Consulting, McKinsey.
Exactly.
As well.
Exactly. McKinsey is a big one, yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining. It was a lot of
pleasure.
Maybe we'll do another one in the future.
Anytime.
Thanks to the audience for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG, guys. Have a great one.
Content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from Dwyer Partners SL, doing business as the FMCG guys, or the individual author, host, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Dwyer Partners SL. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Dwyer Partners SL expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we presented in this podcast.